No mistaking that sound, is there? The brutishly ugly AK-47. It's estimated there are 100 million of these in circulation. They're manufactured by the Russians initially. Since then, the Romanians, the Chinese, the Hungarians, the Bulgarians, the Yugoslavians all import this particular platform into the U.S. The vast majority of AK-47s in this country are variants. They're not original, and technically it's really a variant of the AKM platform in most cases. There are tons of different variations of this brought to you by a number of different manufacturers. We'll go into that in a little bit here, but this particular version is a Bulgarian AK-47 with a milled receiver. This particular AK-47 is imported into the country by Arsenal Inc., and it's imported from Arsenal Company in Bulgaria, which is a separate organization. They don't have an affiliation, even though the names are the same. Arsenal Company in Bulgaria has been around over 100 years manufacturing firearms, and Arsenal Inc. is the exclusive importer of Bulgarian Arsenal AK-47s. So these only show up about once every 10 years. And when I say that, what I mean is milled receivers. The AK-47, when it was originally introduced, came with a milled receiver. In other words, it is machined out of a single block of steel. It's very time consuming, it's very costly. It also adds a little weight to the rifle. Soon after the AK was introduced, it went from a milled receiver to a stamped receiver. And primarily that was a cost-saving measure and a time-saving measure. Stamped receivers hold up extraordinarily well. They're very, very robust. There isn't anything I can say bad about a stamped receiver. So I'm not getting into an argument between milled versus stamped. Supposedly some of the advantages to a milled receiver do have to do with accuracy. It's more rigid, doesn't move as much. But in terms of reliability and the life of the rifle, really I have anybody that's told me it makes any difference at all. One of the disadvantages to the milled receiver is right here, the buttstock. The way that this attaches to the back of a milled receiver is different than a stamped receiver, so a lot of typical aftermarket American furniture parts will not just bolt onto a milled receiver. So something to keep in mind if you want to dress it up on your own. So let's take a look at the bolt carrier, and the trigger assembly on this particular AK-47. They too are hot hammer forged. It is a double hook trigger system. I have to say though, the trigger itself, it's pretty crappy. I do believe that it is an Arsenal trigger. I don't know that for sure, but I may be replacing it with a Tapco 2-stage or some other type of trigger system, as this one is awfully, awfully mushy. You all know the ruggedness of the AK-47 is legendary. So just for fun, I pulled out the bolt carrier group on the AR-15 as well as the AK. And granted, they're different calibers, but when you look at the bulk that's involved in the AK versus the AR. And also what's interesting to me is just when it comes to ruggedness and reliability is look at the machining. You know, again, pretty brutish on the AK-47, whereas a lot more refinement in the AR-15. Both excellent platforms. That's not what this video is about, but I thought it was just kind of an interesting comparison. One of the other reasons I went with the Arsenal has to do with the barrel. It is a cold hammer forged barrel, and it is also chrome lined. Decent AKs will give you about a 4-inch group at 100 yards. Now, I know there's other people who chase the MOA and can do better than that. They'll dial them in. Some will come dialed in better because, again, of the ruggedness and just kind of the overall looseness of the design and the build. You'll get a lot of variability on your ability to shoot groups with it. But they will be very effective. Again, when you think of center mass, if you can hit center mass at 100 yards, which is what, maybe a 6-inch group, it's going to be actually bigger than that. Plenty accurate for most battlefield situations. When it comes to sights, the Arsenal is typical of any AK-47 setup. What's interesting is AK-47 front sights, you do need a special tool in order to make sure that you don't botch up the entire front sight assembly. A lot of people use some homemade stuff. I'm not saying it won't work, but spend the extra 35 bucks, get a decent tool. I use the Magna-Matic sight tool for the front. Works really, really well and is going to last a lifetime. And most of you know that a typical AK will tend to go high and right with any kind of a standard muzzle brake on it. So it does make it a little more difficult to bring it back on target. So one of the first things I wanted to replace and customize on my AK was the muzzle brake. And so I went with the Venom Tactical Anidote. For those of you that don't know, muzzle brake replacement is very, very simple. Push the pin down, unscrew the old one. They are left-hand threaded, AK-47s are, so they go the opposite direction of what you're used to. Take the old one, original equipment off, and simply replace it with the muzzle brake of your choice. Voila, it's customized. Another easy way to customize your AK is with the furniture, obviously. They came originally with wood furniture in many different styles, colors, variations, and you can still get those today. You can get aftermarket wood kits that you can put onto these, but a lot of people have gone to the polymer. In fact, the OE manufacturers of these over in the Soviet bloc countries, they are using polymer, has since probably the late 60s, early 70s. Started with some cheap plastics and then moved into some good polymers, making them a quote-unquote black rifle. Rumor has it that they did find the AR black rifle rather menacing, and so kind of followed suit by going with their own black versions in the late 60s, early 70s when they started putting plastics and polymers. Plus it took weight out. Wood is heavier than polymer, and these run about, this particular rifle runs about 8 pounds. I very much like this rifle. It's very well made. It's very accurate. It's considered one of the better AKs that you can buy in the market. But I have to say, one of the things I really don't like about it is the fact that it's painted. It's not parkerized. It's not parkerized with an additional finish put on top of it. It is just painted. Now, none of my rifles are Safe Queens. They get used, so I'm not worried about them getting a little banged up and nicked. But what I will say is, with just having a painted finish, the scratches show up rather readily and rather easily. So certainly if you want to, you can refinish it. Maybe someday at some point I will. But again, for me, it's a tool. It's something I have fun with. As long as it goes bang, does it consistently when I yank the trigger, I'm pretty happy. So that's a lot of talking about AK-47s without actually talking about what it's like to shoot them. What I can tell you is they're an absolute riot. I own a number of different rifles. I enjoy all of them for different reasons. This one is one of the most fun to just sling lead with. Not to say that you don't target shoot with it. I do. I like trying to be accurate, but there's nothing like throwing a tire or something out there and just taking pot shots. You've got that real loose slamming feeling of the loose tolerances inside of the AK. Rugged, reliable, fires every time, but like I said, it is kind of a brutish, ugly workhorse, which makes it that much more fun to just sling away with. So what can you expect to pay for this AK or any AK for that matter? You know, you can get a good, decent AK for $500 to $600. That's going to be a stamped receiver. That's a Wasser type of rifle. Perfectly reliable. They work just fine. Because of the loose tolerances, it's hard to make a bad AK. It's been done, I know, but I wouldn't get overly worried. If that's what you can afford is $500 to $600 to get into the game, buy it, feel good about it, go shoot the snot out of it. If you want to go with a little higher end AK, you're going to spend anywhere between $700 to $800, all the way up to $1,200. You can get some really crazy ones that are over $2,000, but you know, a real good quality such as this one. This is about a $900 to $1,000 rifle. Again, with the milled receiver and the overall craftsmanship of it, worth every penny in my mind. But again, it's just a shooter. So don't feel bad about spending $500 on an AK. Don't feel bad about spending $1,200 on an AK. Spend what you've got, get what you want, have a good time with it. So that's my take on the Arsenal SLR 101S Bulgarian milled receiver AK-47. These only come around about once every 10 years, so I'm glad I snagged one while they were available. Just absolute riot to shoot, rugged as all get out, and just nothing bad you can say about it, to be honest with you. I appreciate you stopping by, spending some time with us here today at Crucible Arms, and we'll see you next time.